Either you're a rat or you're going to die. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Jessie, and this week I am going to be reading the entire An Ember in the Ashes series and giving my review on each book as I finish it and a final review of the series at the end. And I'll be starting with An Ember in the Ashes by Scribd. So I've been wanting to read the series since December, and by the end of January I had all 4 books, but I hadn't really made time to read it. And right now it's like the last week of February, the end of the last week of February. And I haven't put the actual Scribd books on my March TBR because I'm not sure which one I'll be on by the time I get to March. Because I'm hoping to just take a week and read all 4 books and let you know my thoughts as I read them one by one. But I wanted to, because the series is already complete and it's such a well-known series, I think, and I've heard so many good things about it in the past few months, I wanted to just sit down and do like one full video about it and talk about each book as I read them. And I'm really excited to read this series. So in this book, Leia and her family, they live in this world where they have this incredibly tough and strict ruler or empire above them, and any type of defiance is not met well. And so Leia's brother is accused of treason or something, and in order to save him, Leia kind of, goes against her family's wishes because they tend to just lay low, try to get by, and not cause any trouble, not be in any trouble. But Leia kind of goes against her family's wishes, and she ends up, in order to get this group to help her save her brother, she ends up spying inside this military school where she meets this soldier named Elias, who's the best soldier in the school, and he doesn't really like it, and they end up working together. That's not exactly what happens, but that's just the best way I can think of to describe the back. This is one of those books that I've read the summary so many times that the summary stopped being comprehended by my brain. I am excited to read this. I'm actually about to sit down and read it for a little bit. I'm about to make a cup of coffee, read the book, probably go ahead and post on Instagram because I just took my, a few Instagram pictures and I just filmed my March TBR video, which is why I have makeup on at the beginning of this video instead of just at the end. But anyways, I'm gonna read, make coffee, and I will catch up with you guys after I read a little bit and I have some thoughts. This is a series that I'm incredibly excited to read, and I hope I like it. Alright, so I have read the first 4 chapters, or about 30 pages of An Ember in the Ashes, and I'm enjoying it so far. I swear that I'm still in the same 2 to 3 hour, if that long time period. Leia's brother has been caught by the Empire. It didn't happen quite the way I thought it would based off the summary. I thought it'd be something, not as dramatic as it was. And Leia's still on the run, and I'm already on chapter 5. She's still on the run from the people who captured her brother and her family. And then Elias, from the beginning that he is planning to desert the army school soldier thing he's part of. From the beginning that he's planning to do that, and all he's gotta do is get through one more day. And then I guess a young kid, because the military school takes kids as young as 6, a 10-year-old got caught trying to desert, and Elias just had to witness that kid's punishment, and it's likely Elliot who could be punished soon if he's caught. And so it's really interesting so far, and I'm enjoying it. I actually am planning to keep reading it a little bit. I might read in the bath later. I don't know for sure yet if I'm taking a bath tonight, but if I take a bath, I'm gonna read in the bath. And if not, I'll read when I get in bed. By the way, Rowan is making lots of background noise for y'all right now. But anyways, I will catch up with you after I read a little bit more. Alright, hey, it's Monday. It's been a few days since I last updated you guys. I read a little bit on Saturday. Actually, Saturday is when I did the majority of my reading. But I didn't read much on Friday or Sunday, and I haven't read it all yet today. Alright, hey, it's been a few days since I last updated you guys. I hadn't really been reading much over the weekend. I did read a good bit, I guess, Saturday night, but for the most part, Friday and Sunday, I didn't read at all. And then I haven't read anything yet today, but I am just under halfway through An Ember in the Ashes, and so far, I'm loving this book. I'm thinking about the summary. The summary gives nothing away about the book hardly, because I was a little confused because in the summary it says, Leia's a slave, but she doesn't start the book out as a slave, and she essentially volunteers herself to go into slavery in order to help save her brother. And so far, her and Elias have had a few short interactions, but they haven't had anything meaningful to where they're purposely working together yet. Because the back of the summary makes it sound like they're going to be working together at some point, and so far they're not. And then Elias has his own issues because he'd planned on deserting the school after he graduated, but that didn't work out because these, I think they're called augurs. They're like their religious spiritual leaders or something that supposedly live forever, and Elias always doubted it, but apparently they do live forever. And one of them came up to Elias and was like, you can run away if you want, but if you run away, things are gonna be much worse than if you stay. So now he's staying, and he's having to go through like these tests with a couple of other people in his graduating class, including his best friend Helene. And there's so much going on with this book. Oh yeah, including like his mother is purposefully plotting against him for this test because she seems against him for whatever reason. But this is such a good book. It's so interesting. It's so fun. Or I guess really not fun, but it is really interesting. I haven't read a book like this in a while, or at all. I'm not sure which. But I have been having fun with this book, and I probably will get back to reading it sometime later today. Hey, so I have makeup on because I just did my February wrap-up video. And before I put away my phone and read or relax or do something else while Rowan naps, I wanted to update you on how far I read yesterday. I don't know quite how far I read because I read, I think, a chapter or two during Rowan's nap. And then I read another 60 pages right before I went to bed last night. And I am loving this book so far. I feel like looking at it now, the summary is pretty vague. Because, you know, in the summary, it's like Leia is a slave and Elias is a soldier who hates being a soldier, and they're going to work together. But the book doesn't start out quite like that, and so far they haven't quite agreed to work together, and I'm about 2/3 of the way into the book. But I am really enjoying this book. I'm having a lot of fun with it. I can see why so many people like it. I'm so nervous. There's a couple characters that I'm like, there's one that I'm like, either you're a rat or you're going to die. I cannot see you going any other way. There's this other guy who is supposed to be a good guy, but I think he's gonna be a rat. And there's someone else who I think there's a chance he could be a rat. Also, I use rat because it's just, I don't know, I like that word right now. But I'm having a lot of fun with this book. It's stressing me out in the best way. I'm hoping Helene will end up being on Elias's side. As of right now, they're kind of on rocky terms. Helene is Elias's, I guess, best friend. They've been in the military academy together for forever, essentially, for pretty much their entire childhoods. And I really hope they end up staying friends. Based off the covers of the second and third book, I'm pretty sure that's Helene on the cover. So, like, I have hopes that, you know, she will end up ultimately on their side. But I don't know. I'm having fun. I know, like, that this is only the first book, so, like, I have no idea what's really going to happen across the next 3. But I'm enjoying this. I kind of hope I'm going to finish this one tonight. Like, I feel like it's about a third of the book left. I don't know how many pages it is, but I really feel like if I just sit down and read, I can finish it tonight, because ideally I want to get the next 3 books read this week as well too. It might be a lot of reading. It might be a lot of it might be a lot of late nights, but I want to do it. Anyways, I really don't have any substantial updates. Maybe, you know, to me, Elias's and Leia's first real true interaction is about a third of the, or 2/3 of the way into the book almost. I don't know how this is gonna sound, but I like romance books, but it's not my go-to genre. But also I guess a romantic at heart. So like when I read, I have a bad habit of like shipping people. It's like I'm already shipping Elias and Leia, and I'm hoping that they ultimately end up together. But like this is the first book in a 4-book series. It could go anyway, and also it's not really a romance series. But like I've already caught myself trying to ship them over and over and over again, so I need to stop that. And I do a lot of shipping for someone who doesn't read romance as their primary genre. Anyways, I will update you guys again probably when I finish the book and whenever I'm getting ready to start the second book. I can't remember which one's the second book right now, but I'm excited, and I will catch up with you guys later. Alright, good morning. It is the next day. I finished An Ember in the Ashes last night. I rated it 5 stars. I loved it. One of the rats that I thought I smelled was a rat. One of them that I was afraid I smelled or would die didn't die. That person had, I'm assuming, hopefully a happy ending. They got away safe as far as the book is concerned. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with like where Leia and Elias end up at the end of this book. I'm interested to see what happens with Helene, because like she is on the cover of the next 2 books, so I'm hoping she ultimately ends up on Elias and Leia's side, but as of right now she's not quite there. I think she wants to be there, but for one reason or another she can't. And like I don't want to spoil these books, especially because I know these books are so popular, and the 4th book only came out in December, which isn't really that long ago, but I guess whenever a new book comes out every Tuesday, it might feel like a long time ago, but it's really not. And so I want to try and make sure I don't spoil the books. But whenever I tell you the summary of the, second book, it
has the potential to slightly spoil this book. I don't think it has the potential to spoil everything, because I don't think I told you everything that happens, but it has the potential to particularly be a little bit spoilery. Oh, another thing about this book before I put it down. At some point, this one character who you will grow to hate as the book goes on, and it's a little hard to humanize this particular character, talks about whenever she was pregnant, she kept it this big secret, and she gave birth by herself. And then, like, a day after giving birth, she rode a horse, and that's a lot to me. I had Rowan like 2 years ago, and I could barely walk like a week after giving birth to him. I didn't have the epidural or anything, he came too fast for that, but like, just sitting, like if I didn't sit the right way, or like just anything hurt. So I don't know how, which I guess because of her training, that's why she could push through it, but that's insane to me either way. Next, I'm going to start A Torch Against the Night. This one follows Leia and Elias at the end of the first book. They never managed to save Elias's brother in the first book, and so in this book, Leia and Elias are working together to try to save him, because as far as Leia is concerned, Darren is the most important part of saving the Scholars, which is like the group of people Leia and her brother belong to, from the Marshals, which is the group of people Elias technically belongs to. And like the Marshals, I guess, essentially reign over everyone else, especially the Scholars. So they're supposed to be working together to save Leia's brother Darren, but they're also being hunted by a lot of people, and also not people, like wraiths and ghouls and stuff that prior to the first book they both thought was just, you know, stories, but turns out they're real. So I am excited to get to this book. Alright, so I'm now about a third of the way through A Torch Against the Night. I keep trying to say A Torch in the Night. It's A Torch Against the Night. I'm about a third of the way through, and I'm really enjoying it so far, but I have also came to the conclusion that I am likely going to spoil this book and the next two as well, because I don't know how to talk about them in a way that won't spoil them, and like talk about them as I'm reading them without spoiling what is going on. So in this book, Elias and Leia, they ran away. They are trying to get to Darren, who is Leia's brother. He's in Cough prison. He knows the secret to making some type of steel that only the Marshals had been using for a long time, and that steel is essentially what has helped the Marshals stay in power. And so Leia and Elias are on the run. Elias has been poisoned by his mother, and he is slowly dying. Helene, who was Elias's best friend in the first book, is now like second to the Emperor, and she's called like the blood strike, and it is her duty to do whatever the Emperor says, no matter how she feels about it. And so it is her job to hunt down Elias and kill him, or not necessarily kill him, but bring him back to be tortured and then killed. There's a lot going on there really is a lot going on, but I am having a really good time with this book. This is so interesting to read. Also, another thing is that in this book, they've also added Helene's point of view. And so typically, most of the time it cycles, you know, Leia's point of view, Elias's point of view, then Helene's point of view. And sometimes every now and then it skips Helene's point of view. But I'll go ahead and say that I like books. I don't mind whenever books add new points of view, as long as they keep the original characters having like plenty of points of view as well. I don't like just, you know, handing the book off to new characters. So I'm really glad that, you know, I like that Helene's point of view is added. I'm interested in Helene's character. I am really hoping, because in the first book, Helene ended up with some type of power, or like the magical creatures awakened a power in her that she can sing and heal people. And I'm hoping maybe, you know, I've got two theories. The first theory is that by the end of this book, Helene will be on Leia and Elias' side, and she will have healed him. The other theory is that whether or not she's on their side, Elias is going to die by the third book. Helene is like on the cover of, you know, the second and third book, but not the fourth, and Elias is on all four covers. So I'm assuming he makes it at least to the end of the fourth book, but I feel like, you know, either he's going to be saved by Helene, likely in this book, or he's going to die by the fourth book, because I think it's been, at this point, it's been about 3 months since the start of the first book, and so at this point, Elias has approximately 5 months left to live if he gets the long-lasting part of life with this poison. There's a lot going on. I'm having fun coming up with theories. I'm really enjoying it. Hey, so if my room looks like a mess behind me, that's because it is one. My sheets and bedding are in the washer. Over here, the comforter and top sheet dried, but the fitted sheet didn't, so it went back in the dryer with the other clothes. But I didn't come on here to tell you about my daily chores and how my bedroom cleaning is going. I came on here to let you know that it's now Monday. I finished A Torch Against the Night Sunday morning or Saturday night. And by Saturday night, I mean like 1 or 2 in the morning on Sunday. And I loved this book. It was another 5-star rating. And so I am having such a good time with this series. It is so stressful. There's so much going on, and I am loving every minute of it. So at the end of this book, I think I told you guys that I predicted that, either Helene was going to save Elias or he was going to die by the end of the series. I think there's still a chance he will die by the end of the series, but Helene did not save him. He ends up like in this in-between place constantly throughout the book where this person called the Soul Catcher keeps taking him, and the Soul Catcher, kind of helps dead spirits move from like the waiting place to the great beyond, or whatever you want to call it. And so Elias essentially agrees to take her place as long as she will let him go back and help Leia. And so now this is what happens to Elias. That's Elias's fate. Leia does ultimately manage to save Elias and her brother from the Koth prison, and she learns that she can control her invisibility. She learns that Kenan is the Nightbringer who is trying to destroy humanity as they know it. And she gave up her mother's armlet to Kenan because they both loved each other, and that's why he was able to accept it. And so now she's given up this most valuable possession of her mother to someone that she thought she loved. And maybe she does, and that does technically love her, but just not in the right way. They loved her to use her in order to get what they want. And then Helene. I never expected to be invested in Helene's story. In the book one, I didn't mind Helene. I wasn't against her, and I was interested in her, but I didn't think I would be truly invested in her story. And I'm as invested in Helene's story as I am Leia's and Elias's. Helene, her story is so sad. She tries to save the kingdom from the Commandant, who is Elias's mother. She goes, she actually abandons her mission to go let Marcus the Emperor know, hey, the Commandant's trying to overthrow you. And as punishment for not completing her mission, even though she did it to do something that's more important than, killing this one man, he makes her watch as he has her mother, father, and one of her sisters executed. And he takes the other sister on as his bride and is get out of line again, and she won't make it. Also, I already knew about the Commandant's plan. I know more than you will. I know more than she does. Blah, blah, blah. Crazy ending to this book, and I loved it. Okay, I had to put my phone down. My arm got really tired, and it was starting to get a little too shaky. But I started A Reaper at the Gates last night, and I'm enjoying it so far. I'm only 30 pages in, so not a lot has happened. But there have been a couple of POV changes that I think are really interesting. First, the Nightbringer / Kenan, however you would say his name, that he has a POV. He has at least one in this book so far. I'm curious to see if he has any other. And apparently a lot of Leia's plot in this book will follow, trying to get to him to stop him from his plan to, bring back the Fae creatures and ultimately end humanity. I'm assuming that's what his plan is. And then Helene is no longer titled Helene for her POVs like it was in the second book. Her POV is now Bloodstrike, which is her title to the Emperor. She is the Bloodstrike. She is the one who carries out all of his tasks no matter what. And so she's no longer known as Helene, and I think that really shows the change she is going through, the change she has gone through since the events of the last book, where she had to watch most of her family be murdered. And now all she's going to do is keep her sister safe and also keep the Empire safe because she cannot forget this oath she's taken. And Helene's, I think, story will follow, her trying to save her family or the family she has left and help keep the Empire safe. Even though Marcus, the Emperor, is becoming more and more unstable, he's apparently talking to himself. I think Helene at one point, was oh, I think he sees the ghost of Zach, his dead brother he had to kill in the first book. And then apparently the Commandant is capitalizing on the opportunity, any opportunity she has where Marcus is showing he's unstable to his subjects. She is using that to her advantage. And then Elias, he is struggling because he sold his soul to the Soul Catcher, to the waiting place. And so he wants to help Leia. He wants to be there for Leia, but he can't be away from the waiting place for very long. And even whenever he tries to be intimate with Leia and tries to kiss her and stuff, this magic, I think it was Mayeth. It had a name, I don't quite remember.
but his magic that he got from accepting his oath to the soul, to the in-between place, to the waiting place, is very strong, and his magic apparently doesn't like Leia, and also his magic doesn't like letting him leave because he is now bound to this place. There's a lot going on in this book. I'm excited. Based off the first 2 books, this is on its way to becoming one of my favorite series at the moment. I don't have favorites for long because my favorites are constantly changing as I read more stuff, but this series is definitely close to becoming a favorite. I am having such a good time with it. Hey, so first things first, it's been a few days since I updated you guys. Second thing, my hair is straight for the first time in 9 months. I'm probably gonna wash it and get rid of it tomorrow. It's been straight for about 3 days now. I've been doing the curly girl method for my wavy hair for the past 9 months, and I just wanted to straighten it and see how it looked, but I think I'm going back to the curly girl method tomorrow. But that's not really related to reading. Also, it's been several days since I've really read much, but I did get a big chunk of reading done. I'm now about 60% of the way through the book. I'm really enjoying it, but I think for the past few days I've kind of psyched myself out. I'm getting more and more worried about how the series is going to wrap up. Will there be a happy ending for Elias and Leia and Helene? Because at this point it kind of seems like there won't be. Will they all die? Will one of them die? Will some of them die? What's going to happen? I'm getting a little stressed and anxious and worried about all these characters that I've been following for 3 books, or really 2.5 books. I'm getting worried about them. Like, I feel like Helene's gonna die, especially because she's not on the 3rd, 4th cover. But maybe, just maybe, she won't officially die. She'll take over, like, Elias' spot. So far, I've reached my first complaint of the series, but I don't think it's too big of a complaint. In the first 2 books, it was easier to follow the timeline of where the characters were at. Whereas in this book, I guess because now everyone is completely separated from each other. Helene, Elias, and Leia, none of them are working together at the moment. They are all working separately and far away on their own separate task. Helene is trying to keep Marcus in power and also kind of overthrow the Commandant in her power. And then Leia is still trying to bring down the Nightbringer, and also I think she's kind of tasked with, if she succeeds in that or, gets that started, at least she's still going to lead the resistance. And then Elias is trying to still fit into his role as a soul catcher. He is having trouble cutting ties with his humanity, and that's making that really hard. But something about this, just the way the chapters are written, it feels like they're all in way different timelines and all in way different times than what they are. But as far as I can tell, I guess because there's not, anything at the front of each chapter saying, 2 months ago in 2 more months or whatever, that it seems like they're all technically in the same timeline. It just feels like they aren't because they all have such different things going on. But I am trying to decide if I'm going to keep reading for the night and potentially finish it, or go ahead and call it quits for the night. I am still incredibly excited about the series. I can't quite remember what happened last time I talked to you about it because it's been a few days. I kind of, like I said, went through like a period of time where I was too anxious about this book to pick it up because I have my own hopes and dreams for all the characters. I want everyone to survive, but it doesn't seem realistic, and I'm scared because I'm attached to all of them, even Helene, who, like in the first book, I didn't hate, but I didn't think I'd be attached to. But anyways, I'm about to potentially read, potentially not, I don't know, and I'll update you guys. I just finished A Reaper at the Gates in the bath. I'm not quite heartbroken, but I'm definitely sad. I feel like in the next book, Leia and Elias are going to be on opposite sides of this new war that's essentially going to be, the Fae and the Nightbringer versus the humans. I don't quite know how it's going to go yet. I haven't read the summary for the last book. I'm sad. Helene sold her soul essentially to the Nightbringer in order to, I guess, save herself, to make sure she could save her sister. Elias lost his humanity, and now his final chapter in the book wasn't titled Elias, it was titled The Soul Catcher. And Leia is hurt. She found her mother, who was supposed to be dead but was not dead, and her mother is now officially dead after a few minutes of knowing each other together as mother-daughter. I'm a little sad. I don't quite know what to say. Karis, who is, Elias's mom and the Commandant, she's more or less won for now, give or take a little bit depending on how you look at it. Marcus, the Emperor, is super dead, but
his son, who is like a newborn baby, like a week old at the end of the book, has made it, and so has Marcus's wife. So, I mean, who is Helene's sister. I don't really know what to say about this one right now, other than I am a little bit sadder than I would like to be. I'm not heartbroken though. Everyone that I wanted to survive survived, so I'm happy with that. But I am incredibly nervous to go into the next book. It's Sunday night now, so I will probably start A Sky Beyond the Storm, most likely sometime tomorrow. Maybe if I get up early enough, I'll start early in the morning. But for now, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get my bullet journal set up for the week and then get in bed and get ready to start the week. I'm very nervous for this one. Look at how they're facing opposite directions. They're back to back, but not, you know, like in all the other covers. These two are like not back to back. I mean, I guess technically, you know, in Reaper at the Gates they are, but Helene's in the middle. And like they're not working against each other yet, but I feel like they will be working against each other in this one. And now I'm very nervous and anxious. So I will catch up with you after I've started this one and let you know what I'm thinking of it.
Hey, so I have no idea when or if I've even updated you about A Sky Beyond the Storm yet, but basically I'm struggling through this one. First, I'm really scared of how the series is going to end. I have hopes for who I want to make it and who like I'll be like hurt if they don't make it, but like my world won't end. And so like I'm really scared about how the series is going to end. And at the same time, every time I've tried to read this book over the past 2.5 weeks, I get interrupted to where I think I'm only on page, what? Like barely, not even 140 after reading this for 2.5 weeks. Ideally, I would like to finish this by Wednesday. Today's Monday. Wednesday will be the last day of March. But also I'm scared I won't make it just because I still have so many pages left. I've had so much trouble reading this book. I've had trouble every time I sit down to read it. First, by the time I actually get into what I'm reading, Chris comes to talk to me or something happens and I get interrupted. I am enjoying it so far for the most part. I'm just stressed about what's going to happen. So far, the first book, you know, was alternating Leia and Elias's point of view. And then this one also alternates Elias, Leia, and Helene's points of view, like the second and third book. Except in this book, you know, Elias is called the Soul Catcher, Leia is still Leia, and Helene is still the Blood Strike. That's what their chapters are headed as anyways. And they kind of find out that, you know, all three of them need to work together and be together, and all three need to stay alive in order to defeat the Nightbringer and, you know, I guess essentially save humanity. And then Karis is like bent on trying to destroy Helene's nephew who was born in the last book. I did not hold back and I really spoiled the second and third book, so I'm going to try to be a little more careful of this book and have fewer spoilers, just that way I don't spoil the end of the series, even if I spoiled, you know, the entire middle. But I probably won't talk to you again until I read a little bit more, because at this point we're not far in the book, there's not a ton going on. I'm not even a quarter of the way through yet, I think. But you know, Leia and Helene were working together, and now Leia's kind of left Helene to go back and like try to get Elias to help her again, trying to get Elias to find his humanity all over again, because essentially in order to become the Soul Catcher, he had to give up his humanity. And just, I don't know, I'm stressed, I've been interrupted, but I want to finish it. All right, hey guys, so my hair is a little damp, so I washed it this morning, but I got tired of waiting for it to dry, and I wanted to just go ahead and get on here and update you guys with where I'm at in this book. I typically don't like to update you guys when Rowan's awake, but he's still awake. We're about to eat lunch, and then I'm going to put him down for his nap, and then I'm going to finish this dang book. I'm going to, as soon as Rowan lays down, I'm going to camp out on the couch, this chair, or my bed, and I'm going to finish the last less than 150 pages of this book. Last night when I started reading, I read like 250 something pages, I think. I started the book. When I started reading last night, I was only about 25% of the way into the book. And then I read another 50%, so I'm now 75% of the way into the book, according to Goodreads, and I'm going to finish this thing. I'm so worried that, you know, the 4 people that I'm really rooting for are all going to die. I'm rooting for a couple other people too, but the 4 main people I'm rooting for, I want them all to live and make it to the end of this book and have happily ever afters. The Nightbringer, his character is like really gray and stuff, because like obviously he's pretty awful and just wanting to kill humans to get revenge, but like also like the more you learn about his character, the more you can see where he's coming from, but at the same time the more you can see that what he's doing is not what needs to be done. Found out where Leia's scythe comes from on the cover of this book. Elias's character is still kind of, he's not quite all over the place anymore about, you know, where he stands. Is he loyal to Moth, or is he loyal to his human life again? I don't quite know how to explain it. But I'm having a really good time with this book. I am ready to finish it and see how this goes. Unless something awful happens when the last little bit of this book, this is currently my new favorite YA fantasy. But I'm incredibly excited to get to this book. Or to get to the end of this book to see how the series wraps up. Also, like, I get this feeling with every book I read, and almost every book I read, it turns out fine, but I can never understand how everything's gonna get wrapped up in that little amount. There's so little left in this book, and it feels like there's so much that still needs to happen. But anyways, I'm going to let you guys go. I'm about to go get mine and Rowan's lunch ready, and then I'm gonna put him down for his nap. I'm going to ignore laundry, and I'm gonna read. I finished The Sky Beyond the Storm, and this is now my favorite series ever. I am ready to go look at fan art without worrying about something being spoiled for me at this point. I am a little sad. I am also pretty happy with the ending. I think the ending really worked out. The ending made sense. It wasn't overly happy. It wasn't overly sad. I think I'm the most heartbroken for Helene. I know Elias and Leia both lost a ton of people throughout the series as well, but it felt like Helene, once she started losing people, she couldn't stop. This is such a good book. This is such a good series. This is now my favorite YA fantasy series. We'll see how long it stays my favorite, because I read a lot of as I read more stuff, that always changes. My favorites are never permanent favorites. But this was such a good ending to the series. I love how Elias's role as the soul catcher ultimately works out for the best. I love how Leia, I love how she kind of gets a pretty happy ending. Helene, I think out of all of them, gets the least happy ending, but it's an ending that makes sense for her, I guess. I'm not happy about it. I don't love it, but it makes sense. And I say I don't love it. I love this book. I love the series. I just feel sorry for Helene. This was such an amazing series. So if in the future you're looking for a series where there's a lot of heartbreak, a little bit of magic, and lots of fighting, this one. It was so good. I had a really good time reading the series. I enjoyed vlogging all of it. I do think in the future that if I do any more vlogs or I read an entire series in one go, I'm going to try to be more careful to avoid spoilers. I feel like this series, it was hard not to spoil it because, you can't really talk about the next book without mentioning what happened in the previous book. And so it's kind of hard, but I know that I definitely went overboard with spoiling A Torch Against the Night and A Reaper at the Gates. So I'm sorry about that, but I do think that I did an okay job at not spoiling the ending of the series too much. Just know it's not a perfect ending, but the ending makes sense, and I'm really happy with it. Heartbroken for Helene, but for the most part, I'm happy with it. But actually, no, Helene, I think she really does lose the most out of everybody in this series. Like, if you look across all the books, I really do think she might be the one who loses the most people who are important to her, and like in the most closest amount of time to each other. Like, Elias, I don't think he loses as many as everyone else, but Elias has like a lot more internal struggles. And then Leia, she has like some internal struggles, but like hers are more, I don't know. But Leia, like, she's lost probably just as many people as Helene has, but hers have been more spaced out. If you get a chance to read this series, I really hope you do, and I will talk to you sometime soon. Bye.